I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years.
This seems
Nobody
like a scene
listened.
in a movie
Nobody
where
listened.
the robot can take over and you're freaking me out.
Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan last night and it was a very interesting conversation. I think Elon understands quite a bit of the significance of what's going on. I was tracking with pretty much everything he was talking about in terms of AI and simulated reality and all the things. Obviously, I don't necessarily agree with all of his presuppositions, which would create a different projection or perspective on things, as I'm coming at it from a biblical perspective, and he's not necessarily, although there's a part of me that feels like he is somewhat aware of it, or at least has some sense of it. But anyway, maybe I'm just reading into things too much there, but you tell me. This is Elon Musk talking about artificial intelligence, and just as a reminder, a few months ago, I published a video about Daniel 7 and how we're already battling AI. I've published a bunch of videos about this topic, and one of the things that was very apparent to me was how social media and all of these things are just very, very young, small versions of a hive. And this is all what Age of Deceit 3 is about. It's about the cyber hive Earth, and the different pockets of artificial realities that are going to exist. You can't buy or sell because you can't participate in this thing unless you take the mark, and that's what's coming. And so it's going to be very strange because a lot of people are going to be tapped into this artificial reality, and in a way that is completely immersive, to the point where the questions about mind upload and soul upload, consciousness upload, those things will become even more prevalent, and they will just exist. They will exist, and the point that Elon makes here in this little clip is that they already exist. But check this out. Listen to what Elon says here. This is Joe Rogan asking about AI.
Their AI. How far away are we from something that's really truly sentient?
Well, I mean, you could argue that any group of people, like a company, is essentially a cybernetic collective of people and machines.
A company is basically a cybernetic collective of humans and machines. Now, let's keep in mind, Elon runs some of the biggest companies in the world. And so, did you notice how he was calculating and thinking through? He does that a lot in the interview. I recommend you guys check it out. Fascinating conversation, but a lot of heavy pauses. But that's not necessarily, a bad thing, but he's just processing the information. It's just very interesting to watch. It's almost like that mindset of the cyber hive. Elon's already showing signs of it in terms of his personality and things like that. And I think that explains a lot of the Zuckerberg weirdness and the Bezos and all these guys. Something is up. But anyway, let me keep going here. Let me back up a tad and
Collective of people and machines. That's what a company is. And then there's different levels of complexity in the way these companies are formed. And then there's sort of like a collective AI in the Google search, where we're all sort of plugged in as like nodes on the network, like leaves on a big tree. And we're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI. And and Google plus all the humans that connect to it are one giant cybernetic collective. This is also true of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these social networks.
That's some crazy eye movement right there when he's saying all those things. I mean, I've talked on YouTube and talk to people, and that's very hard to do, to have that much eye movement and processing information and talking. I'm, just kind of trying to do it right now. It's really difficult to do. Something's up, man. Let me keep going.
They're giant cybernetic collectives.
Humans and electronics all interfacing, and constantly connected.
Yes. Constantly.
Hold on, how robotic was that? That was like a straight up cyborg. I wonder if he's playing into the character or what, if this is just the way people are being shaped by this thing.
One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot over the last few years is that one of the things that drives a lot of people crazy is how many people are obsessed with materialism and getting the latest, greatest thing. And I wonder how much of that is, well, a lot of it is most certainly fueling technology and innovation. And it almost seems like it's built into us. It's like what we like and what we want, that we're fueling this thing that's constantly around us all the time. And it doesn't seem possible that people are going to pump the brakes. It doesn't seem possible at this stage when we're constantly expecting the newest cell phone, the latest Tesla update, the newest MacBook Pro. Everything has to be newer and better. And that's going to lead to some incredible point. And it seems like it's built into us. It almost seems like it's an instinct that we're working towards this, that we like it.
Mm-hmm.
That our job, just like the ants build the anthill, our job is to somehow or another fuel this.
Yes. I mean, when I made this comment some years ago, but it feels like we are the biological bootloader for AI, effectively. We are building it.
We are building it.
And then we're building progressively greater intelligence. And the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence. But the AI is informed, strangely, by the human limbic system. It is, in large part, our id writ large.
How so?
We mentioned all those things, the sort of primal drives.
Mm-hmm.
There's all the things that we like and hate and fear. They're all there on the internet. They're a projection of our limbic system. It's true.
Sorry, I just think that was hilarious when Joe just totally got stone-faced there. But, that sensibility or that thought there about the internet being a projection of our limbic system, I think that is spot on. That's true. That is absolutely true. And that's why and I think this is why the biblical side of things, I think even just in a rational perspective, makes sense that we're fallen, that we are sin-filled, because the whole point that Joe Rogan's talking about there about, longing for this thing that we're kind of building for it. Why are we doing it? We like it. Well, the thing that got confused was the knowledge of good and evil, right? And the whole point about in the end times, people will call good evil and call evil good. Well, that's obviously leading to the very thing that Jesus gave us in eternal life, through faith in Jesus Christ. It sounds, so basic and simple and overused and all those things, religious language and blah, blah, blah. But when you strip away all the cultural sort of veneer that gets built over time over something like the gospel, and you get down to the brass tacks of what it's trying to say, what's the core message here? It's actually very similar to what the transhumanists want and what human beings inherently want, which is something better, something more efficient, something, more pleasant, all these things, more beautiful. These are concepts that we long for and strive for inherently, and there's something in the way. It feels like there's an obstacle And we have this tool all of a sudden in AI, in the internet, where we're able to effectively take a look at ourselves very transparently. That's what all this technology has done. It has created a microscope over all that we are as humans, from the biological to the neurological to, you know, the physical makeup to the consciousness and the mind and all these things that the secret government have been investigating and trying to create different weapons out of and stuff. This has all been happening. But even beyond the you know, purposeful evil that have been done through, you know, things like MK Ultra and countless other secret underground black projects and all that stuff, is a drive, this other drive. And what Joe Rogan's talking about there, that is a spiritual drive right there. He is talking about a human spirit that is provoking humanity to continue to push down this direction. So anyway, I thought this was interesting. I'm not going to quote a lot of the clips here. I'll go a little bit longer, but I just, you know, these conversations are super deep, and, you know, I like deep conversations, so I thought I'd throw in a couple cents here into the mix with some of the things Elon says, but let's continue here.
It's true.
No, it makes sense. And the thinking of it as thinking of corporations and just thinking of just human beings communicating online through these social media networks as some sort of an organism it's a cyborg. It's a combination. It's a combination of electronics and biology.
Yeah.
Does this
In some measure, like, it's the
I'm sorry. I love it when they stare at each other. Okay, you know, that whole thing, that's exactly what I was saying about the four beasts in Daniel 7, and then the conglomerate that appears in the book of Revelation that comes out of the sea. Folks, I really think that America as the new Atlantis out of the sea, there's just so much corporation. There's so much there, folks. This is why it's taking a little longer for Age of the Seat 3. This is pretty much they are talking about more biblically relevant things than most Christians will ever realize.
in some measure, like, it's the success of these online systems is sort of a function of how much limbic resonance they're able to achieve with people. The more limbic resonance, the more engagement.
Whereas, like, one of the reasons why probably Instagram is more enticing than Twitter.
Limbic resonance.
Yeah, you get more images, more video.
Yes.
It's tweaking your system more.
Yes.
Do you worry about or wonder, in fact, about what the next step is? I mean, a lot of people didn't see Twitter coming, that, you know, communicating with 140 characters or 280 now would be a thing that people would be interested in. Like, it's going to excel. It's going to become more connected to us, right?
Yes. Things are getting more and more connected. They're, at this point, constrained by bandwidth. Our input-output is slow, particularly output. Output got worse with thumbs. You know, we used to have input with 10 fingers, now we have thumbs. But images are also they're a way of communicating at high bandwidth. You take pictures and you send pictures to people. That communicates far more information than you can communicate with your thumbs.
So what happened with you where you decided, or you took on a more fatalistic attitude? Like, what was there any specific thing, or was it just the inevitability of our future?
I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years.
This seems
Nobody
like a scene
listened.
in a movie
Nobody
where
listened.
the robot could take over, and you're freaking me out. Nobody listened.
Nobody listened.
No one. Are people more inclined to listen today? It seems like an issue that's brought up more often over the last few years than it was maybe 5-10 years ago. It seemed like science fiction.
Maybe they will. So far they haven't.
All right, there's other parts of this conversation where Elon gets into, base reality and simulation theory, and also the optimist part here, or pessimist. He's very, very pessimistic. The one thing that is different about the biblical worldview pertaining to all of this is that everything that they're describing is in the Bible, and it was foretold in this crazy prophecy that over the centuries people have thought this is just nonsense. And for the first time in probably recorded human history, other than maybe the prophets that really, got to hear it, our generation, and this is not special revelation for like a few people. I think this is a generational thing where a generation of believers are going to recognize biblical prophecy unfolding. And it's very fascinating to hear these conversations and how close these folks are actually to the reality of the gospel. People like Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, you don't consider these folks as like, oh, they're, representatives of Christ. Obviously, they're not proclaiming Christ. I don't think they've proclaimed their faith in Christ publicly. But in terms of the future and what we're building with our own hands, this is extremely prophetic. So this was recorded super late. I apologize for kind of the messiness of it, but I haven't published a video in a while, and I listened to this conversation and I thought I'd, again, throw in a couple cents and give you guys something more to think about. I'll leave links to all the stuff here so you guys can check it out. Have an awesome day, guys. God bless.